which is the concept of paternity fraud. And we've seen that the state takes a very, very bizarre approach to paternity fraud. So first, let's talk about what paternity fraud is. It is when a woman says that a man is the father of a child, even though that man is not the father of the child, and then extracts child support from him. And the laws around paternity fraud are just bizarre. We have examples of people who just had no idea that a child existed. It's not their genetic child, so this person has nothing to do with the child whatsoever, but they get sued successfully for child support. We see situations in which which the man does believe that he is the father of a child, finds out that he's not, and again is forced to continue to pay child support, even though he leaves the former wife, obviously. So the question is, why in this situation of moral absolutes? And listen, in most of society, most of philosophy, most of culture, we don't have moral absolutes. But this is one of those rare situations where there is an absolute right and an absolute wrong. To force somebody to pay for the products of a fraud against him is absolutely wrong. There is no philosophical debate on this. I don't think there's anybody, not the most radical third wave feminist is going to say anything other than that's absolutely wrong. So the question is, why is this absolute wrong being allowed to continue to exist? Why, when there's no possible gray area, when there's no two sides of the question, why are we allowing an absolute wrong to continue? And it really has to do with what the next phase is. What is that absolute wrong the first domino of? So when we look at something like this, we need to say, if paternity fraud was treated like every type of other fraud, from just regular old theft to insider trading, where it's prosecuted, where it's treated as wrong, where financial restitution is given, if somebody's the victim of a normal con, right, then the con artist has to pay the money back to the victim. The victim is not expected to pay more money to the con artist. But in the case of paternity fraud, we're dealing with a situation where the victim is expected to pay more money to the con artist. So let's look at the details of this, because something this absurd, something that just doesn't fit like this, there's got to be a story behind it. And we can tell this story when we look at what happens with countries, not in the United States yet, but countries in Europe, in which paternity testing itself is banned. And the idea is that if a large number of people realize that they were not the actual father of the person they thought they were the father of, they would, as you would expect, leave. And that would lead to social chaos. And that's why you have laws against paternity testing in France, as an example, against at-will paternity testing. Now, in the United States, suppose that we just say, listen, if you're not the father, you don't have to pay. If you're not the father, you don't have to pay child support. Let's look at how that domino continues. If we accept the premise that says, if you're not the father, you don't have to pay child support. If you didn't produce the child, you don't have to pay child support. If we accept that premise, well, what's next? Well, the next thing is the entire erosion of the welfare state. Because the welfare state is based on this idea that says, even if you're not the father, even if you've never met the mother, even if you've never seen this person your whole entire life, you still have to pay a type of child support. Not traditional child support, but you do have to pay for the public school education of that child. You have to pay for the food and other needs of that child. It's not your child, but you still have to pay for the kid. If the social change, if the philosophical change could happen around this one idea, we would see the other dominoes start to fall. So if we could simply get to the point, if we want to make these social changes, if we want to end the welfare state, if we really want to fight against this, we need to start with one basic principle, which is this. If it's not your kid, then you shouldn't have to pay 1 single cent for child support. Whether it's somebody who you thought might be your kid, whether someone who just put your name down in a form, or whether it's somebody you've never met and you're supporting them through the welfare state, if it's not your kid, you shouldn't pay child support. If you guys want to learn more about some of the perspectives in here, you can look at the opening chapters of the book Pull Out for free. I've put the link right here in the title. Let's talk some more. We'll talk some more about some of these ideas later on this week as we explore how changing our perspective can change and eventually end the welfare state.